This is the Dick and Conversation podcast. I'm Elissa. If this is your first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you've listened to me before on Amazon, iHeart, Pandora, Spotify, or watched me on YouTube, welcome back. You can reach me on my socials, Dick and Conversations _podcast on Instagram. My Facebook page is Dick and Conversation Podcast Facebook. My YouTube channel is Dick and Conversation Podcast. My TikTok is Dick and Conversation, and I am on Blue Sky at dickandconvo.social. Nope, .bsky.social. And my email is dickandconvo@gmail.com. So I did probably the most adventurous thing I've ever done ever. I'm drinking water. I'll just stay hydrated because I'm getting older. So I did this most adventurous thing. I went to the Black Effects Podcast Network Festival in Atlanta. When I say that this was probably the best networking event I've ever gone to, I'm not exaggerating. And that's no shade to the billion-dollar corporation that I work with that have networking events, and they have speed networking and things like that. But I don't know, it was about, maybe it was the environment. It was like it fostered and promoted networking of, hey, what do you do? Hey, what is your podcast? What is your topic? What's your passion? It just was like, I'm an editor and I'm a photographer and I'm a creative and I speak about natural home births and I speak about corrected felons. That was the podcast name. And I'm giving them a shout out. And it was just so much creativity and networking. It was friendly. It was inviting. It was engaging. So I did meet quite a few people. It was really interesting. I want to give some shout outs now because I made a list because I'm sure I will forget. To the CMV Radio, to Man Chill Podcast, Juice 901. Rumor has it, live, love, laugh, live _ love laugh _ New York City NYC. I met her, Tara. She was amazing. She had this energy that you ever meet somebody and all of a sudden there's a draw to them. She walks into a room and it's like the energy goes to her, kind of like the Duran Bernard, kind of like, oh, that's the energy. I'm the main character in the room. That's how she was. And she introduced me to the podcast of Keep It Positive Sweetie, which I had never heard of. Surprisingly, I had never heard of. But luckily, they did a live taping there and I was able to witness it and it was outstanding. Also, I sat next to Journey. Journey is my new friend. She my cousin now on Instagram. And I kept apologizing, like, I'm sorry, I got these big shoulders. So I'm sorry I kept bumping her and getting up, but she was absolutely wonderful. She's from New Orleans, and I had a good time sitting with her. But I also just wanted to give the shout out to the Black Effect Podcast. They did wonderful. It was wonderful. Charlamagne the God, Dolly Bishop, Miss Bishop, Mr. God, Mr. McKelvey. You guys put on an amazing show. The host with Lauren LaRosa, DJ Envy, Charlamagne the God, you guys are great. And all of the podcasts that were there, Carlos King and 520, Don't Call Me White Girl Mona, who had Dominique Morgan, whom I happen to run into meet because I've been with Dominique like almost every night, scrolling on TikTok when I can't sleep. So I love Dominique. She imparts wisdom, not just knowledge, but wisdom. So it was just really good. That was my first time ever going, obviously, but it won't be my last. I think I need to make that an annual event where I actually go and see, meet, and absorb knowledge. I was really excited to see Deontay Kyle, Eggs and Grits and Eggs podcast, which is becoming very fast one of my new favorites. So, but this is my favorite one, of course. Outside is my favorite. So I want to tackle an issue or discuss an issue tonight that I have been encountering and hearing about quite a bit. And I want to discuss when people get married, how the family that they make or choose is now their family. Like that becomes their family. That's their main familial entity. and the biological family has difficulty stepping back, or as my cousin Jelani calls it, letting go. Hey, Jelani. Um, when you get married and you choose your partner, your, that's the family you've chosen. Now, I get that we all have biological family. I was born into a biological family, born into a biological family. And that's the family you were given, and you love your family. And you, if you're tight with your family and rely on your family, they've been a support network for you and you for them for the majority of your life, that bond is solidified, it's tight, it's solid. And when you get married, a lot of times family have a hard time understanding they are now a supporting cast member. They're no longer the main character. If your sister marries a man, her husband is her family. You can't just keep saying, well, girl, you should do this, and why don't you do this? And if your brother marries a woman, his wife that's his family. And if there are children involved, that's their family. I think we, myself included, I ain't trying to say I'm gonna get on my high horse, I'm gonna get off my high horse, throw myself in here too. Sometimes we have a hard time understanding that the role has changed. We are no longer as prominent of a person in our family member's life. We got to step back. That's not, they don't want your advice. You know, and I know you may have been the go-to person, their advisor, their confidant, their, person that they rely on, their consultant in decision making, but they have a spouse now. And that is no longer your role. You have to, as my cousin said, let go. Let it go. I understand that for 20, 30 years, we all got together at the auntie's house who had the biggest house, or we all went to mama's house, and that's what we did for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and we had the family get togethers. And sometimes when you start your own family, you just don't want to do that anymore. You want to start your own traditions. You want to be at home with you and your kids, and you establish your own traditions. You don't necessarily want to get to the big family gathering that you've been doing for years, or that your spouse has been doing for years. And it's difficult for the family to understand, like, oh, they're not coming because they're staying at their house for Christmas this year. Or they're not coming to Thanksgiving because they're going to her family's house or his family's house, his biological family's house. I know with my ex-husband, I'm bring myself in here too, because that's why. Throw myself in here too. Is because we had to establish that too. At a certain point, we would go to his family's house for Christmas, mine for Thanksgiving, and that's what we did for many years. And then when we got the kids, we wanted to do it at home. I didn't want to travel to Baltimore. Nothing wrong with Baltimore, Virginia. Though, family, I love y'all. Y'all still my in-laws. Y'all still love y'all. But after we got those kids, some twins, I just didn't want to travel to go and do the family thing for Christmas. I wanted to stay at home. I wanted to cut down our own tree. I wanted to put up our tree at our house. I wanted to establish our own customs and rituals and things for the holiday. I didn't want to go all the way to Baltimore and Virginia with the family no more. I wanted to establish my own. And I don't know if my ex-husband was real good about that, about like, this is what we gonna do, because he still wanted to go. He still wanted to go. Actually, I wanted to stop before the kids came, but he still wanted to go. And sometimes it's just hard for the person who married out of the family to establish that boundary. Now, here's what I'm going to get into, probably somebody's business. If you are that person and you marry and your family is still advising, consulting, telling you what you should do, making you feel guilty if you don't come to the family Christmas, then you have to be the strong one to say, look, we got a family. I have my own family now. We want to, break away from the family traditions and kind of stay and hang at home and do our own thing. We're trying to establish our own customs and traditions. You will have to buck against your family, because I'm hearing about how this is negatively impacting people that I know and love. And that's what they're going through. But some have told me they've established boundaries to say, look, this is my family. You guys have to step back. And the pushback that they get from the family when they establish a boundary, where when they begin to say no, how they take it personally and feel attacked or feel you're choosing the spouse over them. Yeah, you are choosing the spouse over them. And especially if you're rooted in the Bible. I don't speak on the Bible too much. I always say Christianity is like a foreign language. Everybody don't speak it. But I'm going to speak it to those who can speak it. The Bible says, where you leave your mother and your father's house and you are joined to your spouse, and the two shall become one. So that means when you leave your mama's house, you leave your father's house, they're no longer your main priority. You got to just you got to establish that boundary. One thing I'm going to say, and the one person who I see is establishing a boundary is my son. Now, I'm letting you all in on my business. And I usually have a rule about don't talk about things that's happening current because I get emotional. I'm not as emotional as I was last week. But my son has decided that he wants to move out. That's perfectly fine. He's 19 years old. He wants to move. He makes money to live on his own. He wants his freedoms. And he came and told me, he says, Mom, I love you. I do. I love you. And I respect you. But I want to exercise freedoms, and I can't exercise those freedoms under your roof. I was very proud that he said. And I was like, okay, I understand. I knew this was coming. And he did, say, can I get my Social Security card? Y'all know us black mamas hold on to Social Security cards. I just got mine from my mamas a few years ago. Almost 53. But he asked for a Social Security card. I gave it to him so he can go on his journey to find him a new place. And I said, what's next? You're going to get married? Because he does have a young lady that he loves. And he told me he wants to spend the rest of his life with her. He said, oh, yeah, that's coming up too. And yeah, Mom, I'm going to need that ring. I'm like, oh, okay. So, I went to work crying. Few days I cried at home and I was like, why you want to leave me? I felt like my son was leaving me. Now I'm not one of those mothers who say, oh, they want their son to be their man. It's not that I want my son to be my man, but I was just used to having my son in the house. My daughter had left. She's been gone almost 2 years, but my son was here and I was just used to having my little roommate, my little buddy. He got me and tell me about how his day at work and I'm telling him about my day at work and just, I wasn't used to being an empty nester, but I'm learning to live with it. The tears have dried up and I wanted to make sure that I would still be able to be in his home if I wanted to just was missing my son. So I say, can I come over and, hang at your house or am I allowed at the house? He said, yeah, Mom, you can come over to the house, but you're not going to just be hanging out there all the time, being there. And I was like, okay, get your house like that anyway. However, as my God brother says, I was very proud to hear him say that to me. 3 seconds after it stung. But I was proud because my son is establishing a boundary already, letting me know that his girlfriend's house, that's her house. That's their home. And I can't just come over, hanging, being at the house all the time, doing that kind of thing. I'm like, okay, I understand that. And I appreciated that I have raised a young man who understands when he's choosing this young lady and they're establishing their home, no one is allowed to cross that boundary, including me. So I was like, okay, I'm very proud. I'll probably cry about it later. Don't get me wrong. But not right now. I was very proud. Good job. Good job, Jay. So I was like, okay. But that's good that he's doing that. Another person who I know who stood 10 toes down on that was my daddy. My dad's been gone 11 years last Saturday. He passed away. But one thing my dad did not play about was his family. Now, here's a little background. My father married my mom, who already had 2 children from previous relationships, and she was young and he was young, and a lot of people don't do that now. They'll accept a woman with 2 children. And then had additional children, so that was my dad. But when it came to us, my dad didn't play. if sometimes we think like, why we're not going to the family gatherings and things like that. And I found dad's side of the family, Harris Marlowe's, don't be offended. But my dad would be like, no, we ain't going. Like, Daddy, we're not going. No, we ain't going. It's like, y'all, it just ain't there. It ain't there. Everybody ain't don't love us like that. so, so my daddy wasn't playing. So he was just not going to. I don't know who didn't love us like that. So Harris Marlowe's, don't, if y'all had that family discussion, y'all should ask my daddy before he died. But he was just like, everybody don't love us like that. And he just didn't take us. Like, we're not going. He just felt it was his role because he was protecting us. We were the family he made and he had chosen. And I don't know if other people had a problem with it. Not my business. That's between my daddy and his family. Not between my daddy and his family. But he understood that this is the family that I chose. This is the family that I made. This is my wife. These are my kids. Even the kids that aren't biologically hers, aren't biologically mine. They're hers, they're ours. And we come first. We are the main characters in the production, and his bio family, they are the supporting cast, which I thought, now that I'm older, like, okay, I hear you. Go ahead, Rev. But I'm hearing about it more and more through friends and loved ones who are going through this. And I just wanted to touch on it just for a little bit. This is a very, very short episode. I have been working in my real job, one that pays bills, keep the roof over my head. And it's been like project after project after project. And I was like, okay, I gotta record. I gotta get this out. Cause it was kind of breaking my heart to hear what's going on with family and loved ones, where it is beginning to impact their marriage because they have a family that they've chosen. And the biological family is having difficulty stepping back and not being the people to be so involved and consult and give advice. Even when I was married, I'm gonna say this now. I get along with my ex-brother-in-law really good now. But at a certain time, baby, we wasn't seeing eye to eye. We wasn't hearing ear to ear. We wasn't standing shoulder to shoulder. If he was one of those people like, is he over there? I'm not coming. We do now. We cool. I love my brother-in-law. But at a particular time, no. But my brother-in-law would advise my ex-husband, and my ex-husband took his advice over me. A decision had to be made financially, career-wise. He's talking to his brother, not talking to me like, dude, we married. I'm your wife. You should be talking to me. You should be taking my advice. And sometimes he would talk to me and still go and talk to his brother and ask his brother's opinion. And he just his brother at a particular point had just, his voice carried more weight in my ex-husband's life than mine did. And I was his spouse. And I know that feeling of your family is influencing our marriage. But here we go. My mom did the same for me. I would consult my mother on things as opposed to consulting with my ex-husband on decision-making matters and, stuff that came up. So I'm guilty too. But thank God we figured it out later before we got the big divorce. The big D. But I know what that feels like on both sides. So I did want to touch on it a little bit and discuss it. One last thing before I go, I want to once again explain the name of the podcast, because at the podcast, the Black Effect Podcast Festival, Jesus, experimental pause, have a little brain slip. I kept having to explain the name of my podcast, the reason why, which I think I was glad to do it. I was glad to explain that the Dick and Conversation name comes from my life experience where I was married And I was what we call a trad wife, traditional wife. I didn't have a job, and I was a professional wife. I like to call myself at home mom with my two babies that we had adopted from foster care. They were new babies. They were preemies. They were 4 months old, 3 months corrected, meaning they came early, like very early, 2 or 3 months early. And I was an at-home wife, so I lived basically hand to mouth, my ex-husband's hand to my mouth, and I didn't have insurance and this and that. Well, we ended up getting a divorce because he fell out of love with me, fell in love with somebody else. Happens every day. Some people just stay there, but in this case, I didn't. I left. But before I left, I had to do something because I had nowhere to go. I didn't have anywhere to go. So I ended up getting a little bitty job and saved money and moved into an apartment where a lady allowed me to move in because my credit was horrible because I had no credit. And what I did not know at almost 40 years old, no credit is worse than bad credit. But she overheard me on a conversation and said, "Baby, I don't know what you're going through, but I'm going to make sure you get in." And she got me in. So I got an apartment and life began. I had to do a reset. I had to start all over again. I had to get a bed and a place to live and get a job to get money. Had to get a truck to take care of me and the kids. And my career began to flourish and take off, and everything that I lost in the divorce, I accumulated. And I got a bed. I was so happy I got a bed. That's the most important part. I got a bed. And I decided to start dating again. And as I began dating, I discovered what's in the dating pool. And there's a lot of people say, "Ooh, girls piss in the dating pool." It is, yes, it is. But there are some good guys that are out there as well. I encountered some, and I encountered others. I encountered others. They just weren't my person. But what I did discover in the dating process that I never took a loss again. I never had to find out what it's like to start all over. How can I get a place to live? How can I get a job? How can I get health insurance? And the thing I discovered in the dating and never taking a loss again was all those men really brought to my life was dick and conversation. And when they left, that's all they took with them. My children didn't miss a meal. My lights didn't get turned off. My cell phone didn't even get turned off. I had a boost then. That boost was still rolling. $65 a month. I never, ever took a loss with the many men that I dated after my divorce. All that was dick and conversation. And I try to use this podcast to encourage women and educate men to never, ever, ever have anybody so embedded in your life that if they leave you, you don't even have a place to lay your head. Like you don't even have a bed to sleep in. That's a position no woman should ever be in. Ever. Men either. Because I'm noticing a lot of men do live with women and then they get put out and they gotta move back to whoever they're staying with. I don't understand. It's another topic another day. But I explained it at the podcast network. I even did a picture podcast. So I'm going to talk about my podcast and I pitched it. Be great if it got picked up. Hello, it got picked up. But I wanted to explain the name because if you're new here, you're probably wondering like, what is that name? What does it come from? What does it mean? It's not really some sexy swinging from the chandelier type of podcast. Unless you go back and listen to that Do Something Dude episode. That was a little freaky. If you go back and listen to that episode, then yes, that one is a little tawdry. But overall, it's stories about my life and the lives of others and the things that we as women go through, have gone through, are going through. I use my life as cautionary tales. And I've had to give little statements like, yep, I paid child support. How did I end up paying child support? That's another episode. I paid child support. I had to start all over. I moved my kids. I had to be strategic when I moved because of state laws. I work in corporate America. A lot of people ask me, what do you do? I'm not a full-time podcaster. I'm not monetizing. I'm not doing monetization with my podcast. It's my little passion project right now. And they asked me, what do you do professionally? And I said, well, I'm a global learning strategist. And they, what is that? I said, I make training modules. And they were like, I said, you know how you go into a new job and you have to watch these videos before you start your job? They're going like, yeah. I said, that's what I do. I make those. So when you're sitting in your new job and you hear that boy, you're watching the video and you hear someone going, remember to log off using the password you were issued at the beginning of this training. This will allow you to log out of the system and then you will be able to close out of the window. That's me. But because of AI, I don't necessarily have to be the voice. I can type the words, find the voice, put it on the video. There you go. But I did want to explain the name for those who have not seen this podcast before. That is where Dick and Conversation comes from. I've often said many, many times, although this is a podcast that I thought I was making for women, I get a lot more feedback from men, and the men will say, hey, Alyssa, now that I listen to your podcast, I know exactly why my girl is doing this. I understand why she's saying that. I understand she might, when I'm triggering her, or I really didn't want to get married, but I'm here with her now, or I made a mistake, or how do I handle this, or I don't want to date a woman with children, and I don't want to date a woman that got grandchildren and the grandchildren there. How do I get out of this? What do I say? How do I navigate through this? Which I think is really dope that men are willing to listen to me to tell them, this is the perspective that you're getting from me, a woman who's dated a man who's had kids and grandkids and such, and I've dated all kind of men. Did the research after the divorce. Woo! Wild times. Sometimes I had to do, I did some dirt, but I kept my dirt clean overall. But I did want to get on here and send a message out and hopefully encourage someone to say, yes, they're married. Yes, that's my sister. Yes, that's my brother. Yes, that's my aunt or whomever they are in your life, best friend. But they're married now. That's the person who they've chosen. And if they elect to not do girls' night with us anymore because she wants to stay home and just chill up under her husband or her boy, her husband and the kids, then I have to respect that because that is her family now. Or if he wants to stay at home with the wife and he don't want to go to the Pistons game, go Pistons. I'm hoping we go all the way, go Pistons. He doesn't want to go to the Pistons game like we used to. Then I need to respect that because that's his wife. That's who he chose. That's who he wants to be with. I'm no longer like his top priority in his life because you don't want to destroy your person, your cousin, your sister, your brother, your friend's marriage or impact it negatively. Not if you truly care. Like not if you really care. Sit your ass down. Get up, sit down somewhere and allow the person you love to enjoy the family they've created and the family they've made. Once again, this is Alyssa, the Dick and Conversation podcast. You've been listening to me on Amazon, iHeart, Pandora, Spotify, and probably watching me on YouTube. But if you got that Spotify, you probably watching me on Spotify too, so you never know. Once again, my socials are Facebook Dick and Conversation Podcast Facebook page. My YouTube channel is Dick and Conversation Podcast. My Instagram is Dick and Conversation _podcast. My TikTok is Dick and Conversation Podcast. You can reach me at dickandconvo@gmail.com. And I'm also on Blue Sky at dickandconvo.bsky.social. Once again, this is Alyssa. And once again, thank you, Black Effect Podcast. Dolly and Charlamagne, you guys did excellent work. Top tier. Thank you for what you've done, what you're doing, and what you will do. See you next time.